It is one of the strangest tales ever told. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you.
Welcome to the Dark Fantastic!
I'm not a monster, Jake.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Yeah, you love this one. It's a scream, baby.
It's showtime.
I am your mother.
Time to float.
I don't feel like she's not a mistake at all. Like she's better for being different.
Gender fluid.
No matter what, you keep finding something to fight for.
Hey, Michael!
What's your favorite scary movie?
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
Hello, spooky minions and ghoulish listeners and the rest of you. Welcome to episode 57 of Theme Park Workshop, part 2 of our Halloween Horror Nights review. If you listened to our previous episode, we talked about the entire event. We did some scare zone rankings. We did a vibe check of the whole event. So if you haven't listened to that, go ahead and check that one out, or stick around, because this time in this episode, we are ranking the houses. These are obviously what a lot of people come to Horror Nights to do. And we definitely have some thoughts on them, and we're going to rank them for you. But before we do, I think we talked about it a little bit in the previous episode, but just like general speaking, how are the houses for y'all? I'm going to start with you, Bella.
They were pretty good. I think nothing is going to top the house lineup that was last year for me. That was just like, I was having the time of my life last year. But these were really good. I was a little skeptical about a couple. I had not so great runs in a few the first couple times. But then, as per usual at Horror Nights, you get a good run in, and then it kind of shakes up your ranking. And I had my ranking next to like my first night ones. And yeah, there were some shakeups. Let's just say that.
I feel you. Kelly.
Yeah, I actually liked the houses this year more than last year. In general, like as a full lineup, I would say that. There were ones last year that I liked more than ones this year. Yeti, I don't even think Yeti was my number one, but it's up there. I can't remember actually. Anyway, my point is there were houses last year that I really liked, but this year's lineup I would say was strongest overall. I don't know how much it changed throughout the event. I didn't get to go as much as y'all did. I mean, I think I went like 10 times or something, but that's low for me. But I will say it shook up quite a bit from my hype list. My hype list is extremely different from my final ranking.
I'm nodding voraciously. I think that's the right word, because mine too. Same with you, Bella. Like my hype list, if my hype list saw my current list, it would keel over and be like, what? There's no way. There's no way. So if you listen to our hype episode, you're like thinking you know what the three of us are going to say. You don't. But overall, I'd say this is the first year since going in 2019. And granted, I only did 6 of 10 houses in 2019. For me, this is the best year of houses where I would say every single one of them was great. For me, every single one of them was great. There was not a clear loser among them. Even what I will have ranked as my number 10, I think was excellent. Whereas in the past, there's like those 2 or 3 houses where I'm like, don't love ya. But I think, as Kelly said, there were higher highs. I think only one house this year is going to sneak into my, what I call the Sacred 7, which are the houses that are never going to leave my top rankings. I don't say top 10 because 8 through 10 kind of sneak out the back with New Year's, but there's 7 where I'm like, oh yeah, those are probably never going to be topped or taken down by any given house. So I don't think as many have snuck in there. I think really it's just one. But and last year there were 2 or 3. So I'd say in general, more houses were great for me than just like, the high highs and the low lows. We are going to get started and actually tell you exactly the numerical ordering of how we feel about this. And remember, like, your list is going to be different from our list. And my list is going to be different than Kelly's and from Bella's and all the other combinations of that sentence you could say. These are our opinions. And you know what? Share yours in the comments below in the Spotify poll, or, social media message us. But yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting episode for sure. As we do with every ranking, I think we did that with our top 10 all-time episode, and with all the other Horror Nights episodes in the past, except for that first one. That was a little unique. We will tell you this, 10 through 6, and then 5 through 3, and then 1 and 2, to leave a little suspense there at the end, but also make sure, you don't forget our orders and whatnot. So yeah, Kelly, go ahead and take it away.
Wow. When I started, like when I pulled this up, I did accidentally pull up my hype list and I like gasped. I was like, there's no way. There's no way. And then I was like, oh, scroll up, Queen. Okay. So my number 10, I feel like this might be controversial. I'm not sure. It's just a house that never, ever hit for me. It's also the shortest house, I think. It is Triplets of Terror. Is that my number 10? This one and my number 9 were pretty close for the bottom, I will say. And it's funny because I just looked at my 32 ranking a few seconds ago, and my top 3 are like all-timers from my 32, and only like 1, maybe 2 of these ones are. So it's just interesting. I liked this lineup a lot, which means I liked all 10 of these houses. So don't hate me, especially a specific person on Twitter. I know someone who's done this house. I don't know them personally. 400 times.
I just want to know how.
I don't know. It is the shortest house, and it does usually have short-ish lines compared to the other ones, so only like an hour instead of 6 hours. But yeah, Triplets of Terror. I never really got good scares. I'm not going to say I never got scared in this house, but I never felt any sort of terror. So it just didn't like hit that way. I do love the triplets, especially the ladies. They were great. They were so much fun, but it just didn't, I don't know. It wasn't gross enough to like be the gross house. I guess unless you're like sensitive to dogs. Sorry about that one scene, guys. But like it just wasn't gross enough to be like a gore house, which is not my favorite anyway, but it also like wasn't scary enough to be like a terrifying house, and it was just like it was campy, but it didn't hit for me. So it was okay. Most of the nights I was okay if I didn't do it, but I did still end up doing it quite a bit just because the lines weren't as long. So it was easy to go through it, and it was quick, but I don't know. It was campy. I like the idea behind it, and the triplets and I share a birthday, March 3rd. So that was kind of fun and silly, but obviously there was a podcast room as well. Oh, we didn't mention this, by the way. There will be spoilers, but I mean, you can't do the event anymore, so sorry guys. And but if you want to watch the YouTube videos first, go do that now. Anyway, my number 9, also one of those things that I feel like wasn't that controversial, is Museum, Deadly Exhibit. Apparently controversial in the podcast. I don't know. I really wanted to love Museum. It was number 1 on my hype list. It was very similar, where it's like, I get this. It's fun. It's visually appealing. More visually appealing, I would say, than triplets even. And it was cool, but it just most of the time didn't hit. I put it a little bit higher because there were some scare elements sometimes for me. And then sometimes I would walk through and get nothing. I think the scare actors were absolutely working their booties off in that house. I think they were doing a great job, especially like all the like guards were like really expressive, but it felt repetitive, and I just like I didn't enjoy the aspect of like, oh, the exhibits are coming to life the way that I thought I would. Like it seemed too static for me. So I don't know. I wasn't really about it. I thought it was really eclectic, but like not in a good way. Not like a house that might be higher on my list is eclectic. So I don't know. Number 8. This one probably is a little controversial. Number 8 is A Quiet Place. Again, it's repetitive. A Quiet Place, and I think it was someone on HHN 365 a while ago that was talking about this with like a first impressions episode. It's not one that you can just do a bunch of times and have the same effect. And I think the only reason it's not at 10 is because of how impressed I was the first time I went through it. Like, if I only went through it once, it would probably be higher. I don't know if it would be top 5 necessarily, but it would be a little bit higher at least. But that first hallway is only effective once, the dark hallway. And like, the scares are really only effective like once because they're very, you know what's going to happen. And I'm sorry, guys. It's really nice that you loved the A Quiet Place, not y'all, but like people in general, the A Quiet Place challenge, but it didn't actually do anything. And anytime people were like, should we do this? I was like, maybe Bella has other opinions. I didn't get anything out of that because I was like, I don't know, the scare actors do it or they don't, either way. But I was like, because it wouldn't be a fun house if like nobody jumped out at you. So of course they're still gonna jump out at you. But I do think the sound design was pretty amazing though. The fact that there's like no music is really unsettling. It was very interesting. It was a cool concept. I don't need to see a sequel of it necessarily, but it was cool. Number 7 was Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. This was number 2 on my hype list. It did not hit the way a Monsters House does, and I sincerely hope that that doesn't discourage Universal from doing more Monsters Houses. I'm fine if they want to take a break and like kind of reevaluate, but it didn't hit the way a Monsters House should. It wasn't a bad house, but there was a lot of dead space, which was like purposeful dead space that I just didn't think worked very well. I feel like this house should have hit like a Legends Collide where it's like horrifying and like relentless. And they took some really cool risks that I really enjoyed. Obviously, like killing Saskia, I can't say her name, was cool. But it's like if you only went through that once, you might have not even seen that. I think it was Adam that once said, like, you really have to get almost every scare for the story to make sense. And to me, that doesn't make a great house because it's like, but I'm not always going to get every scare, especially if I only would have been able to go through this once, which is what probably like 90% of people's experiences were just the crazy ones that listen to probably and go to this event like with frequent fear. So it was still fun. I really liked the stories. Obviously, I support women's rights and women's wrongs, so that was cool. The character designs were amazing. The one she-wolf like scare with the flying was really neat. And there was other cool stuff. Like I really liked like the Frankenstein's monster, like the claw going through him, and then her screaming about him, and that was really cool. So there were cool effects in this, but just didn't hit the way that a Monsters house should. And finally, perhaps my most controversial take on the whole thing is that my number 6 is Insidious in the bottom 5. I don't know, man. For people to say it's like the scariest like house of all time and stuff, like I was crying when I went out of Scarecrow in 2017. Now, granted, I had gone to the event a lot less at the time, but I don't know. Like it just there was a time where I did get really scared at the end with the demons, and I was laughing and screaming, and that was really fun. But I feel like maybe the reason I didn't enjoy it that much, there's 2 things, and I think one is that I do not care about the Insidious franchise at all. I don't find the movies scary. I guess I've only seen the first one, but I just don't care enough to continue them at this point. And it was just a lot of like, oh, there's this demon again, and the designs were cool, and like the scare actors were relentless. But then like, let's see, I've probably been through this house like 6 times or 7 times, maybe. No, it's less than that. I think it's about 6. And like at least 4 of the times I didn't get scared at all because nobody was jumping out at me, and it was like jumping out at other people. And there wasn't like a full dark hallway. There were some like mannequin effects, but the way they did it just didn't really get me. So it's like, I don't know. I didn't get scared 90% of the time I went through this house. There was like one like one or two rooms, like one time I went through it that I got really scared, but it wasn't enough to make it like this is the scariest house I've ever been through. So we'll see how Scarecrow is in Vegas. If that still scares me the way that it used to. But I don't know. It was okay. And that's my number 6.
Controversial yet brave.
Yeah.
Like it's welcome to your Deadman's Pier moment, Kelly.
I know, and it wasn't even that
my-
low. 6 is still pretty high. Well,
That's true. That's true. Well, so
the
was
bottom
Deadman's
Y'all wait.
Pier.
Y'all wait to hear mine. Because controversial yet brave. Those are good, Kelly. I get all of your reasoning.
Me too.
get it.
Yeah. I think our lists are actually
Thank you.
very similar, yours and mine,
I think
with
that-
one exception.
Probably Insidious.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my number 10, again, I want to preface, I thought every house was great. However, with my number 10, there's a little bit of an asterisk because I bailed on this house before I could get annoyed by it, because this happens every year with an IP, such as A Quiet Place, which is my number 10. There's always an IP that leaves such a strong first impression. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you're so much better than I thought you were going to be. I love you. I will always love you. And then I spend more time with it, and it's just diminishing returns. And it makes me kind of annoyed to go through the house. It happened with Stranger Things 4. I'm sorry, Bella. It happened not as much with The Last of Us, but it definitely happened with Halloween. And then I just kept on getting disappointed after waiting so long. I'm like, I know how this song goes. I won't let it happen to A Quiet Place, and I will only celebrate its strengths. Its strengths including, like, I've never seen a house at Halloween Horror Nights since I've been going that really set the atmosphere as effectively as it did. And I think it was the sound mix and having that dark hallway. I would go in line with people like, oh, we're gonna yell so loud, it's gonna be so loud in here because of us, and then as soon as that dark hallway hits, they're like, oh, never mind. The animatronics did nothing for me. They weren't scary to me. They were cool. I'll always take an animatronic. That's why that one really gross scene from Terrifier 2 doesn't really faze me, because I'm like, whoa, look at the animatronic. And I think that same kind of degree of separation kind of happened in this house, especially since one of them was come out of the tube and kind of do a little like Birdie Cheep Cheep out of there. And like, it was cute, but I don't want to be in a quiet place and like a house that's supposed to be very scary. I don't want to be like, oh, that's cute, like, and that's supposed to be like a big scare. And almost like the Quiet Place challenge of being quiet almost emphasized how unscared I was in there, because it didn't take a lot of trying after a little while, but I think that atmosphere was really big. I think that was such a strong strength. I do want to celebrate that. That's why I say they were only great houses this year, because the actual design of the house was really strong. And so I only did that 5 times, because I'm sure if I did like 6, 7, it would actually be like, no, this is going to my bottom 10 because I don't like it anymore. It was strong. My number 9 is Triplets of Terror, which I did 10 times. Again, it had short waits, and I did like the house. It was the first house I did for this event, actually. Kelly and I and my brother, actually. And I went out of it, and I'm like, if this is like any other year, this is going to be a top house for me. I thought it was really, I love the characters. I liked the idea of it, and the podcast room and that true crime angle. I'm like, this is very strong, but it was not like any other year in my opinion. It was very strong. And so this was a good house that just got outshined by a lot of other houses. And I do think they told the story the best way that they could. It was short, but I still think it was effective. But I think my overall opinion on Triplets of Terror is that I love the Barmy triplets. I love the Barmy triplets, Harmony, Melody, and Junior. I love them to pieces. And it's almost like all of our great slashers. Freddy Krueger, yeah, the first Nightmare on Elm Street is good, but we're quoting him throughout that series. And we love Nightmare on Elm Street because of Freddy. And we love it because of Jason's kills. And we love it because of Michael's kills and Art's antics. It's not necessarily one great slasher movie that makes a great slasher villain. And like, this was a good house, but I think the Barmies, in my opinion, kind of surpassed it to the point where it was almost bumping my 7 and my 8 and my 6 around a little bit, trying to find where it was going to end up in my rankings. So I'm glad that we've introduced the Barmies. I hope they continue to I don't think we need a Triplets of Terror 2. Maybe we do it a zone where they show up, but I want more Barmies. I want their story to continue. I want their appearances to thrive and continue because they're such strong characters that surpass their house. Like, any good first slasher movie. My number 8, this is my controversial pick. It's Monsteros, the Monsters of Latin America. Don't get me wrong. I love this house. It's a great house. It was one of the most aggressive houses up there with Insidious. I think, and I did this one 10 times as well. And I wonder for this one if it's just like I got to the point of appreciating this house and knowing it was going to be consistent, but it didn't offer too much more. I kind of ran into the same thing with Blood Moon Dark Offerings last year, where like I know what I'm going to get through it. Blood Moon is probably more repetitive, but I dug the themes of Blood Moon more. And for me, I love the cultural appreciation of Monsteros, but I never got that that extra thematic stuff that I connected to, I guess. That made something like Blood Moon in the past a little bit more tasty, or I wasn't like yearning for it in the way I was my top 7. But I love seeing El Cibon, a very scary guy, and the other 2 monsters whose names I don't want to botch on this podcast again. But the baby sucker and the owl witch and all of them. It made me want to go deeper into learning about these characters and the folklore and stuff, and that actually made me appreciate the house more. I really dug this house. I know my brother's going to be mad at me. This was his number 1, but oops, I don't think he's listening to the podcast anyway. So maybe he will. I don't know. Yeah, no, I loved Monsteros. It was very high on my list. I love the aggression. I love the actors. I love the characters. And the music. I like the music in here too. I thought it was a great way to build the suspense. The rule of thirds, where the owl witch would actually scare you instead of just being a still figure. I thought that was a great way of playing with your expectations. And Death himself, El Muerte, loved him. And his little stilt walker ending. It was great. I love this house. It just happens to be my number 8 because I loved this top 7 more. Speaking of number 7, I did this one 11 times. And I think my co-hosts are a little surprised I haven't brought this one up yet because I was kind of smack talking it. That's Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines, which I was on a journey with this one, not quite a Spirits of the Coven journey, where it's like, I love this house, I hate this house, it's fine. It was more like I wanted to love it, but there was I perceived some structural flaws with it. Like it was still, as a Universal Monsters fan, it still hit for me as a Universal Monsters fan, but I'm like, I'm not going to rank it higher just because I'm a Universal Monsters fan. The IP is not going to save it because I love The Bride of Frankenstein. She-Wolf of London was a great addition to here, and Moon. I love seeing all of them because I just love the DNA of Universal Monsters, and Saskia Van Helsing is a new character who's great. I love the story decisions that it took. I thought it was a really ambitious story, but I think trying to squeeze all of that, it's a very dense story. It hurt the house at times because it led to long scare sequences. Like I think the Moon's vanishing, which is pretty key to the plot because that's Saskia's first target. She doesn't even get to fight Moon, and she's like, "Well, guess I'm going to London now." At the best, you could see her disappear from the fog, or maybe just stand in the corner far away, waiting for that effect to reset. Because it took a minute in a 15-second room. And as I told Kelly before, you really have to get all the scares to really appreciate the full story. It's also, I've never heard a guest summarize the story correctly. The first Universal Monsters, very succinct, showcase every monster. Bride of Frankenstein lives. The Bride of Frankenstein is going to kill the brides of Dracula to get their blood to resurrect Frankenstein's monster. Very simple story. Legends collide. 3 monsters want an amulet for their own reasons, and they're going to fight each other. Unmasked had no story, but it was fun. And then Eternal Bloodlines, it's like Saskia Van Helsing wants revenge because the Dracula's daughter killed her brother because Dracula himself killed Abraham Van Helsing, Van Helsing, and now she's going to kill all the monsters. But the Bride of Frankenstein, she joins the alliance because she's after revenge too. Because on this journey, the She-Wolf of London kills Frankenstein's monster, and then they go fight. But then she's dead, so the cycle continues. Like it's a great story. It's a great story. You cannot summarize it in 4 minutes. That said, all of that I think is still valid. And these empty spaces, they're empty so you can follow the story, but they're still empty spaces. So I say all my criticisms ahead of time because that's what I was thinking all season. At one point, this was my number 10. Then I did late night runs with it in the last weekend. I did like 5 of my runs during the last weekend, and it finally hit for me. And I got more connected to the story. I got new scares I hadn't gotten before. And at that point, I'm like, well, now I'm sad to leave this house because I really don't want it to end. And so, despite my criticisms, which I think are still valid, I did connect to this house more than I did Monstrose, Triplets, or A Quiet Place, which is why it finally is at my number 7. And I can say that it's as good. It's in the same breadth of quality as the other monster houses. 3 monster houses are in my like sacred, they're in my top 10. This one's not there and Mass isn't there, but I still think like I can speak of it highly as I do something like Bride of Frankenstein Lives, which is an all-timer for me. So that was 11 runs, a lot of them towards the end there. I did really come around to appreciating this house. And finally, my number 6, not finally, we still have 5 more houses, but for this segment, finally, with 13 runs, was the house that was not what I thought it was going to be, but it was everything I needed it to be. And that is the Museum Deadly Exhibits. I came to really love this house in a way I came to appreciate this house the same way I love something like Bug House. It was a variety hour house. And I just got happy walking past it every time. When I saw it empty, I'm like, ooh, too bad for all the people who are going to miss out. I just had a lot of fun running through here. I could have done it again and again and again. And I agree with people's disagreements with it. Like, not every scare hit. Some of those giant rotting stone costumes at the end. I think those costumes were probably so heavy that there was a lot of reset time and they didn't always jump out right away. And it's like, oh, well, I missed the final scare. That's great. Okay. These things happen. It's the nature of the event. And it wasn't the scariest house. I would say this is something like, Tarot, that movie Tarot that came out this year. We're like, is it a great horror movie? No, but I'll turn it on Halloween because it's a fun time. That's what the museum was. It wasn't quite a B movie, and it wasn't like an A tier classic like Carrie or whatever the equivalent of Legends Collide would be as far as scary goes. But it was just like it was a fun horror experience. It had my favorite song cue of the event when you go to the Viking room. I love the music that played at that point. I'm sure it's an original track, so I'll never hear it again. Bummer. Universal, if you're listening, please put your soundtracks on YouTube or Spotify. I know you want to reuse them, but I also want to relive them. Thank you. And I think my favorite character of the event was in this, and it was the femme presenting It's Possessed. I thought she really, or they, I don't know. I don't know the genders of these actors. I'm not going to assume, but it was like a deeper trigger too. So who knows? But I thought that the way that she presented that line, I thought was a great tone setter of the house because it took it seriously without being campy, as some other performances I saw that line were. Because it's like take it so seriously, and it's next to a living desk. And then it's got some of the best scares following up creative scares, like that like swamp monster scare with the little he wrestles the net and then he goes booga booga, and then the double scare that could happen right after that. Like there's some great scares leading, that escalate in there if you get the right run. But just the vibe of that house, like it wasn't what I expected. I thought it was gonna be the scariest house since like Graveyard Games. It had that potential. They chose not to do that. I love what they did though. And that is why it was at my like top 3 at certain nights. Like I love this house. It just happens to be my number 6 at the end of this event. I hope I didn't have a Deadman's Pier moment. I hope I didn't have a Deadman's Pier. Thank God. I survived another podcast season.
I think I did more than you did, so.
But our lists are very similar.
I'm about to have a Deadman's Pier moment of mine.
Ooh, all right, Bella. Take it away.
My number 10, which was my number 2 on my hype list, with 6 runs. I didn't go that much this year. With 6 runs, number 2 on my hype list. My number 10 is Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. I wanted to love this house so bad. because I love Unmasked. I loved Unmasked, and like nobody does, and I don't understand. Thank you. I'm so glad because I had the time of my life in that house. I loved that house so bad, especially the one time I went through that house really under the influence, and all I remember is giving the Phantom heart hands and crying when he did them back to me. Like, I loved that house. And this one, it was not giving what needed to be gave. I couldn't tell you the story, even though Adam just explained it. I really couldn't tell you a single thing that was going on in that house. And I never had a single good run of it, which was really upsetting. Because then y'all are saying you need to get every scare to get it. And I never got it. But like the sets are beautiful. I love that it was all an all-female house. The sets were really cool and it smelled really good in there. It was a good time, but like I was disappointed because this was number 2 on my list. But oh well. My number 9 with 4 runs. Insidious the Further. I don't think I looked up every time. I don't think I ever saw what the house looked like besides on YouTube videos. Well, okay, I lied. I would get through the house. I would get through the door to the house. And I'd get to the lady with the iron. And that's it. That's as far as I make it. Except a couple times where I'd accidentally look up trying to like move my hair out of my eyes or like move my glasses and I'd like see someone. The last time I went through that house though, my friend said that the guy with the oxygen mask was right here. And I didn't see him. Because I was just zoning out. I have a routine of what I do to not look in houses. I hold on to my friend's shoulders. I put my face right in between my elbows. I bring him in so I can't see anything. And I look at my feet. And I'm just talking to myself. So I'm not really paying attention. Oh, and then there's that one time I went through with Jay. And I almost lost my glasses. Almost stepped on them. And then threw them back to him. And then I cried. It was a time. I also really liked how there were interesting hallways in this house. And the space felt really small. Like it felt very... Like there were a lot of interesting pathways in houses this year, and I think I liked that. It made everything feel interesting. But I can appreciate for how intense this house was because the times I could hear it, because I feel like they had the sound cranked up to 1,000,000, to where it felt like my earplugs weren't earplugging. It seemed like a very intense house, and everybody loved it. But it was too scary for me. It was too scary for little me. I am not about that life. And I'm really happy for everybody that loved this house. And it was definitely the scariest one I've ever walked through in Horror Nights. And I hope it never comes back.
I just have to say, I'm dying that we both have it lower on our list for opposite reasons. I was like, It's number, whatever it was for me, 6 or whatever, because it's not scary enough. And you were like, it's too scary, it's too low.
It was... And the fact that it's not at 10 is like crazy, but I'm so sorry to anybody that worked on this house or that loved this house. I hated Bloodlines. I didn't like it. And the only reason I did it was because there was another house right next to it. And I was like, well, the wait time's low. We're going to just do it. But anyway, my number 8, I only did this twice. And the first run of this was beautiful. Is he really? It's Tanka Jahari. For those wondering, I have a tapestry of Sal Volcano from Impractical Jokers on my wall behind me, and I guess he's popping through every now and then.
It's fine. I'm not criticizing. I just think it's funny that
I want to know how it's happening.
He's like the red ghost from Insidious. He's doing the
jump. How is it happening?
Maybe it's the way you're moving your hand. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh! There's his face! Take a screenshot. My number 8, I only did twice. My first run, absolutely fantastic, amazing. Everybody stayed quiet. I didn't know what it looked like because I hadn't watched a video yet. I loved it. And then my second run of A Quiet Place destroyed it because we were in front of a group of very loud screaming adults that literally would not shut up. And it ruined the entire, it ruined the entire thing. Because I genuinely loved it. Especially the first time. I thought it was so cool. I loved the inside facade of it. I loved it. And I thought the animatronics, meh, except for those big ones at the end. But the puppets were incredible. And I love a good puppet heavy house. I do. It's just who I am, and I'm not sorry for it. But I mean, I wish I got to do it more. But I feel like you said, it's one of those houses that you can't do over and over again because one, it's not scary. I did stay quiet though both times. I mean, the second time I was more frustrated. I was like, "Oh my god, shut up!" But like, I don't know. I didn't really expect this to be like high. He's popping through. But that dark hallway was really cool with the head. That was really awesome. My number 7, I actually got to walk through this house with the lights on. Thank you, Universal. And I did not realize how gory it was. My number 7 is Triplets of Terror. It is the gore. It with you. There is. Seeing it with the lights on was crazy. Like, well, first off, that was the first time I'd ever been in a Horror Nights house with the lights on, so that was really cool. I was really excited, and that was the first time I saw the dog actually, and oh my god, yeah, no girl. This house, it was pretty okay. It wasn't like super scary for me, but it wasn't like not scary. It was like right there in the middle. I do it because it had a low weight and like I loved that room where you walked around the corner in like a circle and the one with the bunny mask is like and then there's the police sirens. I loved that room. I loved like the flow of that room. I just thought it was really cool. But like they were really cool. I'm pretty sure the facade of that house though, I'm pretty sure that's Eddie's trailer. Because I walked in. Yeah,
I did the tour, like the official tour, and it is his trailer.
Because I walked in when I walked. Well, also,
and
it's in the same location.
Yes, and the police car is from. I mean, it might have been used for other things, but it was definitely in Psychoscarapy, one of the most famous like scare zones from 25, which was fun.
Ghostbusters is where Stranger Things was. But the first night when I walked through the house, not seeing any. Like, obviously not seeing videos because that was the first house I did. I had, like, a visceral reaction to seeing that house. I was like, oh, my God. And, like, obviously it looks different now. And, like, it looks like a house and not a trailer. But I was like, I was really sad. I was like, oh, my God. But anyway, I love that house. I mean, I didn't love that house, but I also didn't hate it. I would love to see them again. The guy scared me the most. Because I forgot about him until the first night. I thought it was just the girls, and then I was like, "Oh, you're scary." And then what is my number 6? Okay, my number 6. Oh, how many times did I do triplets? 4. What? What?
Adam's making fun of you.
Why?
Because you're like, I forgot about the guy. I thought it was just the girls. And I went, triplets.
Listen, I'm not small. I'm not very smart.
It was in love.
I don't know. My next house, I did 5 times. I did like this house. I did. But it wasn't scary. And it was kind of fun. I liked that it was in a different location inside of a location. I'm a little sad they didn't use both like they have for the 2 years prior because I think that is such a cool format and they need to do that more because I think it works really well, especially for Blumhouse houses when I just want to like throw like Abigail and Megan, give it to me. Give it to me now. Need it. Anyway, Major Sweets Candy Factory is my number 6. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. It was cute. I don't think it translated that well into a house. It wasn't like it is like my number 6. Like it's pretty up there because it was fun. I liked pressing all the buttons, but I think it should have stayed a street. I just don't think it was I don't think it was that scary for me, which is like wild coming from me. I expected different, but it was fun to see Major Sweets and Miss Treats again. Especially Miss Treats because she's an icon. Also, she like stopped coming out with her chainsaw like after the first weekend, and I'm like, girl, where? I'm not mad, but where are you at? Literally, where'd you go? I say that as it's like middle of the pack. Like it wasn't like a standout, but like it was. I like the music, and I'm so sorry, Kelly, but the guy was funny. He was kind of funny. I like pressing the button, but yeah. That's my 10 through 6.
Slay. I actually did see chainsaw treats a lot towards the end. So
oh really?
Maybe it's just bad luck.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not
I stopped seeing her too, but I wasn't going like the last 2 weekends just because of school stuff. So maybe she really came back. Okay, well, I've got. Do I have 3 for you? I'm giving you 3 now.
Yeah, 5 through 3.
Okay, number 5 is Monstros, the Monsters of Latin America. I really liked this house. I thought it was really fun. I would say it just about met my expectations because I was not planning to enjoy it, but assuming that I would really enjoy it. It was number 5 on my hype list. So it exactly met expectations, actually. I figured there would probably be ones I liked more, but I had really high hopes for it. Higher hopes than Chupacabras, which may or may not have been at number 10 for me in the past. And but not because of the representation. I thought that was fantastic. And I thought they did it really well in this house. So I really enjoyed that. I know that some people didn't like this, but I really thought that the like tombstone that said 2 on it for you was hilarious. I think people's criticism was they were like, it should have been a scare actor instead of an animatronic, and that's fair, but I just thought it was funny and I laughed at it every time. But I really liked the narrator, and I enjoyed the way that they split this house up. I love a giant head, so the giant Elsie Bone head was incredible. That animatronic, the big giant bird, God, I didn't like being in that room because it smelled so bad. It smelled like bird poop. Like it was nasty, but the giant like bird animatronic was awesome. And like I felt like, oh, I've seen it once. I'm not going to appreciate it as much because it's not like it does the same thing every time. It like stretches and like it's all creepy, but I was impressed with it like every single time. I thought it was really cool. I just wanted to not smell that. And I wonder if they did that on purpose because they were like, please don't just stand here and gawk at this animatronic. Get the heck out of this room. I was like, I don't want to smell like this later. This is nasty. Thank goodness there's no scare actor that needs to stand in here all day. But yeah, I thought the design was really cool. I thought the scare actors were relentless. It wasn't like the scariest house I did, but I did get some good scares and I enjoyed it. So overall, I think it was a really strong house. It just didn't, I feel like this is going to be all of them from this point. It just didn't stand out as much as the ones above it. And I feel like won't stand the test of time. Like I feel like, especially my top 3, but my top 4 are ones that I'm really going to remember. And, this one just didn't quite make the mark, but I thought it was really impressive. And I like what they did. And I would love to see a part 2 like they did in Hollywood. My number 4 is a house that I have had an interesting history with. And it has been my number 10. Y'all probably already know what it is, but so 3 of the houses this year had my biggest phobia, and it's different than being scared for me. For anyone that does not have a severe phobia, it's not the same thing. So it's not like enjoyable. Like I enjoy being scared. I'm so excited that Scarecrow is coming to Vegas and I hope it's terrifying. But I don't do well with phobias. And Mater Sweet's Candy Factory had an entire room and 2 scenes like based around my phobia. And kind of 3 because that one scene was questionable with the tubes, but it was like static, so it wasn't like noises or anything. Anyway, I have a vomit phobia, if anyone doesn't know. I had noise canceling headphones blasting like metal music, and I was not looking in any of the rooms where I knew something might happen. I was being tormented by probably the best scare actor that plays Puke Eating Paul. I don't think I saw him ever with my eyes open. So unfortunate for me, I guess, because he seemed funny, but I did see videos of him. So the first few times I went through that house was rough, but as I kind of came to have a peace with it and went through some things personally that helped me a little bit with the phobia stuff, I was able to listen to the music, which I think is part of the best part of the house. Or one of the best things in the house is the music in certain scenes, and I love all the rats. I love the guest activated triggers besides one. The candy bowl is really fun. I like the rat one. I love Mistreats. I love Major Sweets. Major Sweets has one of the best lines with the destroy the evidence. Like, give Mistreats that chainsaw. She's amazing. I just thought this house was really like, when I first went through it, I was really critical of it, but I was impressed by it by the end. I have heard a lot of people say it feels like a classic HHN house, and I have only been going since about 2000. I think I went in 2012 and then 2015 on. So I don't know if I've been in a classic enough house to count as that, but I was pretty impressed by it. So I thought it was fun and it smelled good. Thankfully, didn't smell like other things. My number 3. So this is like, these top 3 are like, these are really high for me. My number 3 was my number 10 on my hype list, and I was really impressed by it. It wasn't going to beat out these top 2 by the end, but it is really, really impressive, and that is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. A movie I have never watched. I have only seen the original Ghostbusters. The nice thing about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is there was a lot of references to the original movie as well. Like, the fact that you walk in through like Ray's occult books, like that, is that what it was called? Yeah, that was just so fun. And there's a lot of recognizable characters and things like that, and ghosts obviously that I recognize. And oh my gosh, the little Stay Puft Men were so cute. I don't remember how many they said were in that house, but it was a lot. And I love that they were all animatronics and not static figures. I mean, I think some of them were static, but a lot of them moved, and they would just move a little bit, like their heads or their arms would move, and they were so cute. There was a triple scare in one room with all the ghosts that got me probably more than any other scare in the entire event. I mean, there was some scares in Insidious and A Quiet Place that got me really good once, but that triple scare got me like a few times, and I was not expecting to be scared at all in this house, and I think that's why it was one of the scariest houses for me, because I would just get caught off guard a lot. Only in a room or two, but still, the stilts were really impressive for the Garaka scare actors, and so that was cool. Yeah, there were just some really impressive facades and fantastic puppets. It was nostalgic, it was fun, it was cold, which is great in Florida. I loved it. I thought it was just a really fun time, and I always wanted to do this one as much as possible. So that's my number 3.
Pretty good list.
Period. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we still similar, Adam?
No. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think what you said was your top 3. Like, there's no really beating those. Like, those are really hard to like muscle, your way through and stuff. That's not the right phrase, but you know what I mean. Like, it's hard to beat them. That's my top 5 this year. Like, it's so tight. But yeah, I was going through my top 5, and it's like, I think almost everything was in like the 2 to 5 position the entire season. And then some of those bottom ones would jump up there, like, no, get back, get back, get back. I need to throw these up. One of them was a huge surprise. So yeah, let's just do it. Maybe I'll get it. Maybe this will be my dead. I'm waiting for a Deadman's Pier moment. I don't try to make them happen. I just know it's inevitable. But my number 5 is Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. that had 9 runs out of me. This house was really special, not only because I think it surpassed the 2019 house, which I loved when I did it. It just, in time, my memory is like, you've done some better IP houses than that one, but that's such a good house. This one, having watched all the Ghostbusters films leading up to Frozen Empire, except for the 2016 one, because it's just not part of that storyline, having rewatched them, it was so special to see all the Ghostbusters 2 representation in this house. Love seeing that. Even when not everything worked, even when there were a bunch of holes, because I would do this a lot for Stay and Scream, they just didn't have every actor out for Stay and Scream. Especially even some of the Garaka stilts, like the final Garaka stilt. I only saw him half the time I went through this house, which stinks because it's a great stilt. It's part of a key scene taking Garaka down. I loved it. It was so immersive, even with all the holes. It was just such a joy to be in, and seeing all those different effects. Like, it was just like a great attraction and not just a great haunted house. And I think that's wonderful. It was funny. It was fun. There's very spooky moments, like like that dark hallway with the triple scares where Garaka lets everything, like, it all goes loose and Garaka's out and the librarian's out, and then some other spooky character, the dog, which one of the dogs, I don't know if it's the gatekeeper or the keymaster, but whichever one it was, you did your job, good boy. And then the other one, which probably from Ghostbusters 2, and I don't remember the names of all the Ghostbusters 2. Not the point. It was a great house. I loved going through it. It was so fun. And the fact that it's my number 5 is pretty wild, when it was just so strong. But I love this top 5 so dearly. My number 4, oh man, it hurts to put this one at number 4 because it was so freaking great. This is the house where, if we actually did the math, it's probably the house I was looking forward to the least. Because I had one house that's my number 10 because I kept on forgetting about it. My number 9 on my hype list, I didn't forget about it. I just didn't think how it could scare me. But then I freaking loved Goblin's Feast so much. I freaking loved Goblin's Feast. I adored this house. The only reason it's not in my number 2, where it was sitting for a long time, it was in my Sacred 7 for a little bit, is because I just had some weaker runs towards the end because of the time I went there. Because when you go through with 1 o'clock with all that makeup and all that costuming, like, it's taking a toll on you the whole night. So I don't want to, like, bump the house down for that. But I do have other reasons for putting my top 3 higher than this one, because I did this 14 times. That's the second most I ever did a house this season, because no one was doing it. Because it's all the way in the back in the tent plaza, and so it could just loop that with the walk on. I love the music in this one. I loved all of the characters. I love the vibes. It reminded me of Yeti in the best ways. Next to Ghostbusters, it was probably the most immersive house. I forgot I was in a tent half the time, and then I would notice new things about the set every time I went through, which is partially why I have 14 runs of this. But there's a moment halfway through the season, because the giant hand, if y'all don't know, there's a giant hand in this maze, borrowed from one of the tribute stores. King Kong makes a little appearance, but it's supposed to be like you are going to the Goblin's Feast, you find out you're the meal for the Goblin's Feast, and then you just start running like you're Forrest Gump. And this giant goblin hand tries to get you back. And once that started working halfway through the season, that house took on such a brand new life. I've never had the chase scene experience this house gave me. And I'm like, it's the fun house, but then it had one of the scariest triple, maybe even quadruple scares, depending on how long you think that sequence lasts, which was insanity to me. I loved that. This was such a beautiful house. And then, of course, Fungilius. I cannot talk about this house and not talk about Fungilius. The little guy, well, he's a little tall guy at the end, who is all like, the food is escaping, but he did it with such pizzazz. Which was the right way to describe it. We're twinning. This was a beautiful house. I had no expectations for it, especially since I didn't like Dueling Dragons, which is kind of in that same universe. It was fine. I just didn't love it. And so I'm like, I'm not going to love this. And it was scary. It was funny. It was fun. There's so many details. I loved the world of Goblin's Feast, and it pains me to have it as my number 4. But alas, other combinations felt truer.
I think that might be your most controversial take.
Is that it's just two
At
spots
4.
away from number 2 or 3 spots away from number 1. It needs to be higher.
Correct.
I mean, I kind of agree with you there, but also I don't because that's on my list. I think I don't know. Maybe Monstrous is the most controversial one, but even so, like I don't know. I don't know. Let's not get too meta right now. My number 3, I did 8 times, and it scared the poo poo out of me. And it scared me consistently that way. And that's Insidious the Further. It is not one that I wanted to wait 2 hours for every night, but it's one that never got old. And it scared me in new ways. I screamed octaves I didn't know I could ever reach. I jumped in ways I didn't know I could jump. There's literally one time where in like that final stretch where all the demons are coming out at you, and then the lipstick faced demons kind of like, come on, come to me, hey, come on, I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get you. I knew he was coming. He's at the very end, and yet still he scared me in such a way that I think I jumped like 5 inches, but like I was in rigor mortis doing it, and then I hit a high A, like an A2, A3, something like that. They're very different notes, but you get the vibe. I only had one bad run in this house, and it was on like the last night when I got an express pass for free. So I mean, I think that kind of also pumped it up a little bit too. Is like that's a great memory associated with this house. I'm sure Blumhouse is very happy to see that people closed this out, and so this house couldn't dump its cast until like 3 in the morning. But it's very scary, and what I loved about it, and I think this is why I'm like, no, that's my number 3. That's my number 3, is because I didn't always want to get this scared, so like it should have belonged lower, or should it go higher because I got so scared. But it's that it was so simple, like it was just classic haunted house, and there weren't, besides the iron, I don't think there were very many props. It was just a gaggle of characters being the scariest people they could be, getting the closest they could get to you, the most aggressive they could get to you, thinking of new ways to scare you. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And so that's my number 3.
Period. I love how we all have Insidious in different places.
It hit everyone differently, I think, but it definitely left well, maybe not with Kelly. I don't think it left an impact with Kelly, but it definitely was iconic in a way, you know? Like you couldn't avoid the aura of Insidious.
It's gonna be one of those houses that everyone talks about for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
Faux show.
I mean, I don't love the movies, and this house was so good, it made me want to revisit the movies. I ultimately did not get through them all, but I mean, that's a good IP if it makes you want to like spend time with the IP further besides just that house.
Further, you say?
Further.
That's how I felt about Poltergeist. I have not rewatched Poltergeist since I did the house. I watched it for the first time before I did the house, and I was like, that is one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen. Please forgive me, anyone who hears that. That is the most controversial take on this podcast today. I did not like it, but now I feel like I should watch it again because I loved the house. That house is, if I had a Sacred 7, Poltergeist would probably be in it. I loved that house. Maybe not because I've had
a Sacred 7.
There's at least 3 from last year that are in it, so maybe Poltergeist wouldn't make it, but
hey, listen, Kelly, I support women's rights and I support women's wrongs, but that's a wrong I can't support, is your opinion on the Poltergeist movie.
Drama!
I hit mute too fast. Religious horror is not, it's not my genre.
About Poltergeist?
There's
a priest in there.
Is it not a priest? What is that?
It's
lady,
like a psychic
then?
realm. She's like, she's like an occultist. Yeah, she's a psychic.
Oh, well, she's weird.
That's why you know it's not religious, because she's like, this house is clear, and it's not.
Oh.
Jesus didn't sign off on that.
Maybe ghosts aren't my jam. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Ghostbusters being at 3.
you like ghost oppression.
Anyway. Bella.
Sorry, Bella.
Okay. Oh, you're fine. My number 5. I had this house very low after the first night, and I did it only 4 times. That doesn't seem right, but anyway. My number 5 is Museum Deadly Exhibits. I did not like this house. I thought it was too scary. The thing on the desk, no. It also looked like bloaters, and I had a terrible run. But then I had a really good run. And boom, up the list it went. There was one room, I tweeted about this. There was one room in that house that smelled like Darkest Steel, and I honestly think that's why it's at number 5, because I loved that house so much that, like, any remnants of it, I'm like, ugh. Ugh. I liked it. I didn't hate it. Clearly, it's my number 5. It was my number 4 for my hype list, so not too bad. I loved going in there every night, going folklore, like Taylor Swift. It was fun. I loved your tweet, Adam. It's not a boulder, it's a rod. Oh my God, it is so funny. I had a good time in this house once I had a really good run of it. I just miss Darkest Steel that was there. That's all I could think about when I go through that house. I'm like, I could be going through Darkest Steel right now. Anyway, I move on. My number 4. This is also another house I got to go through with the lights on. Thank you, Universal. And that room does still stink with the lights on and nothing happening. And man, is there a lot of bird poop in there. But my number 4 is Monstros, the Monsters of Latin America. Also, I told y'all in the Hypeless episode that house was gonna stink. It did. Literally. Not that. Oh God, I loved that house. It was so intense. It's very consistent, like y'all have said. It was a very consistent house. That freaking puppet head. My God. Oh God. I loved that house. I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I just loved it. Elsie Bone, he's a king. The stilt of him scared the crap out of me every time. I just loved it. And I knew I was going to love it because the Hollywood one ate the house down. Like, it was so good. I was very scared of this house, though, the first time I did it. Because I remembered how intense the videos of Hollywood was. And I really hope we get the sequel. I loved this. I want an Elsie Bone house, just him. It was just so much fun. I had a really great time. But my number 3, this pained me putting it number 3. But I did love it. I did it 4 times as well. A lot of 4s. I have Slaughter Cinema 2 as my number 3. I did love this house. I did. I say that as if number 3 is a bad thing. It's not. I just loved the other 2 more. I was so excited to finally do a Slaughter Cinema house. And I loved that my tradition of walking into that house from last year continued yelling hot dog, because that's where Oddfellows was. And Oddfellow had a hot dog sign when you walked into it. And Slaughter Cinema 2 had 2 hot dog signs right when you walked into it. So I got to yell hot dog twice, again. And it was great, but unrelated. I had a lot of fun in this house. I think my favorites were Mardi Gras, because I would always do a little dance with the jester. I also really loved Bruce. Was that his name? The shark with the little otter right next to it. I don't know if y'all ever saw the otter. Yeah. I also loved mummy strippers. That was so iconic. That was like the greatest thing ever. I loved every second of that. The Christmas one. Oh my God, those little elves would get right up in my face. Oh my God, and Santa. Oh God, I loved that house. I did. I hope we see a lot of those B movies, and also the Beast Baby poster. I was like, hey Queen. I hope we see a lot of these movies as houses in the coming, or zones in the coming years, because they've talked about how that's how they test themes. I think all of them would be really fun houses, especially the mummy strippers one or the sharks one. I'm kidding. That shark one was so awesome, and I didn't see that because I didn't watch a video of it before I went in, and it was I loved it. It was a lot of fun. Also, Cyborgs. It was fun. It was a good time. It was so good. But yeah, that's my 5 through 3. Take it away, Kelly.
now we're down to 2-1, and it's interesting because each of you have one house that is in my top two, different ones in your top two. Do we have the same number one, any of us? Not all three of us.
I think we do, Kelly.
I think so. Because my number two, they say that lightning does not strike twice. And it did, but it cannot beat the original. I have Slaughter Cinema 2 as my number two. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a good time. It didn't beat the original for me, and I think that's because I'm the only one in this group who has done the original. Like, obviously y'all have seen videos, but I was the only one that was there for it. And anyone who has done it just knows that that concept was so impressive the first time, and it was so interesting that it was kind of, I believe it was thrown together like ideas for houses that were just perhaps made more campy for the effect, but it was great. And we've seen the birth of the Yeti houses from the original Slaughter Cinema, which have been some of my favorites. So that's exciting. Curious to see if anything like that comes from this house. I will say, perhaps a controversial opinion, I don't want to see most of these as full-blown houses because I think they did really well in short form. I don't know. I love the punk rock skeletons, but maybe I'd like to see a zone with them or something. I think that'd be kind of fun because I don't know if they could, do a whole house and have it be good. And then I would love to see a Jaws house, which is obviously different than Blood and Shop. I mean, I'd love to see a shark house, but I think a Jaws house would be particularly interesting. But it did do well in the short form also. And I would actually, Hatchet and Chain was possibly my favorite scene. And I think that would make a really cool house because the effects that they did, I just thought were so impressive. I thought it was scary. I really liked the puppet on the string. I thought that was just a fun effect. And I don't know, I really liked that one, but it went together so well. It was a great house. I love that they always do trailers for them, and I just think that's a fun time. Even if I didn't like the Mardi Gras one, but it's fine. That was a personal problem. And Mardi Gras room, I made peace with the drunk man by the end, but that was not my favorite either. Although the jesters were so fun. They can make a house on that one as long as nobody vomits in it, but somebody will. It's Mardi Gras, man. But yeah, it was fun. I just love that. I always have a smile on my face in that house, but there are genuine scares as well. So I feel like that's just what happens in a Slaughter Cinema house, and it was great. It was good to see my Beast Baby and my friend from Pumpkin Guts as well, Daddy. That was nice. And my Amazon Cannibals from Planet Hell, that was one of my favorites from the original. So the big sign, even though my cannibal ladies weren't there, it was still cool to see. So I liked the posters at the end. I know not everyone liked that, but it was nostalgic and interesting. And there were some on there that were not in either house. So I'm like, either that's going to be a house or maybe they'll do another. I think they got to do another one. Come on. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be 5 or 10 years from now, but I would love to see it. So that's my number two, which means my number one is Goblin's Feast. I loved this house. This was one that the first couple times I didn't really get it. Heard everyone say this house is so fun, it's great. And I was like, I don't know. And I think I had really bad runs because as soon as the hand started moving, the big hand, it worked for me, and I would just have fantastic runs. I got some really incredible scares. That triple, quadruple-ish scare in the middle end is one of the scariest moments I've had at Horror Nights this season. I love the video effects that if you didn't look up, you might have never seen of the giant, and that was really cool. I liked a lot of the sound cues. It was just a good time. I would dance through this house. One of my favorite effects too was that it says Goblin's Feast on the front, but then as you're walking in, you can see under it that it says Human Chop House, and I didn't notice that until the third time. And yeah, I thought this was just going to be we're going to eat you and that's it, and nothing added to it. And obviously it was that, but it wasn't at the same time. They got really creative with the scares. There was a really fun goblin in like the first scene on the right as you're walking past that would kind of like stalk you a little bit, and that was really cool. It was just very impressive the way they did this. I thought that the scares did really well. I really love the finale as well with the giant like puppet animatronic thing at the feast, and then the other smaller one comes out and screams at you and harasses you. That scared me a lot the first time as well. And then of course Fungilius at the end harassing me. I've had a lot of good interactions with him. I was always disappointed if I walked through and he wasn't there, or if he was like not doing his sound cue yet or something. So what an icon. But yeah, I felt like this house was so much fun, the most fun I had going through any of the houses, and also genuinely scary. And I loved it. I thought it was great. And I want to see more goblins. I thought it was fun. I don't know if they need to do like a Goblin's Feast too, but I think maybe a scare zone would be really cool. Like, I don't know, give me a torture fair but with goblins. Give me a Renfest Goblins Street. I think that would be very, very fun.
I think too about the first time we ever saw Fungilius was not in that house. He was serving as he was entering the house, and we're like, "Who's this cat?" And then we met that cat, and what a cat he was!
Who is this diva?
I think he was voguing on the way over, like going down low
Period.
end voguing. I'm like, "Oh my!"
He definitely was.
I
Yeah,
want
it was
to
great.
go to your parties.
I was like, who's this guy?
Oh, Fungilius. I hated that they had him in like a corner though. Like you'd miss him if he didn't turn around. He needed a throne.
He was a gift to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So my number two, my top two. I think my co-hosts are probably a little surprised of one house that's not been mentioned yet, because every time we talked, it was never this high. In fact, I think it's so high compared to our conversations. You could flip your lids, kids, because it's Major Sweets Candy Factory. Goo, 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 goo. I love this house by the end of it, but I did not at first. When I went through it the first time, I said, that's the worst Halloween Horror Nights house I've ever been through. I really don't need to do that again. However, I refuse with the Frequent Fear Pass to only do a house once. And so I did it again, and then I did it another time, and I'm like, oh, these characters are kind of fun. And then it got to the point where now that I'm in Orlando, I wasn't in September, now I am in October, and now I am now. And I'm like, okay, I have a short night. What do I want to hit? And Major Sweets was always on that list. And what ended up making me love the house so much was the vibes, which was true with Sweet Revenge, which wasn't even one of my favorite scare zones that year. Like Graveyard has reached my heart more in the time since doing Halloween Horror Nights 31. Conjure the Dark is still one of my all-timer zones, honestly. And the Scarecrow zone, I think, was that year. That was fantastic. Love that. So, like, Sweet Revenge is not something I hold deep in my heart. And I was surprised that they brought this back. Again, it was my number 10 on my hype list. So, what a freaking comeback story from 10 to 2. If we're, treating hype lists as, like, early quality predictors. But I love the vibe in the house. I love the songs in the house. I love the storyline of the house, honestly. Like, there's that middle portion where, like, Major Sweets is coming on the intercom once all the kids have just, like, started devouring their chaperones and ripping them to shreds. And it's like, I love to, like, donate to the goodwill of the children and, like, be their surveyor or their purveyor and stuff. And, like, it's a fun little monologue that I didn't always catch. And then when I did, I'm like, that's really great. But it really came down to how unique every character felt and how much love was given into these different characters and these performances, and just creating this really fun vibe. Like, there's a lot of kids in here, and I could not list every kid for you, but I wouldn't say like, oh yeah, that's kid A, you're acting like kid B over there too. Like, they weren't generic, which is wild because they all are dressed the same, but they got different props on them, and they're all scary, and they would scare me sometimes. I love the Taser. Taser was doing shapes when we got stuck by their little nook before they kind of got the flow right with this house. I love the lines. It's so quotable, destroy the evidence. And then Taffy's wonderful. No one talked about Taffy. Love Taffy, who's like the number 3, who's like the sidekick. who loves Miss Treats, and then the more you go through, like I love seeing all the rats. The rat at the beginning, I give heart hands, even though there's no performer. I don't think clicking that trigger is just come out. Um, and there's so much detail in this house. And I wouldn't say that the Fast and Furious location has ever been cursed. I know a lot of people have that opinion. Horrors of Blumhouse 3, that was my number 3 that year. I like the Chucky house a lot. I still think this is the best one though. Like it didn't say Fast and Furious location, but it's an all-timer for this location. And it honestly got to the point by the end of the event where I'm like, I'm really gonna miss this house, which I wasn't looking forward to. I hated it off the front, but it was the passion was just so strong in this house, and I loved each of the characters. I loved all the triggers. And I, maybe I probably had some points the first time, like, oh, the tone shift's really strong, and it's very sudden. Houses shouldn't do that. But I say screw that person who said that. I just love this house by the end, and I was shocked, I was surprised, but I couldn't imagine my list any other way. And by the end of the season, I had 12 runs of major suites. So again, from something I never need to do again to 12. What a comeback story. Major suites, we always believed in you. My number 1 though, in the surveys that Universal sends out after you do a visit, you show up to Horror Nights and like, hey, we saw your ticket scanned. You want to take a little survey? It's going to take about 10 minutes to an hour. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And as I was sitting in the parking lot of a Panda Express expressing my feelings for Slaughter Cinema 2, which is my number 1 house, I said, this is the kind of house I go to Horror Nights for. This is the kind of house that I get a frequent fear pass for because of all the detail that's in it and just the vibe of it. I adore this house. This is the last house I ever did. I did it like 1:59, I got in line at 1:59 a.m. on the last night. I closed out with this one, and I got to applaud every single one of the characters who brought this house to life. I got to do it behind one of the shark puppeteers because he ended his shift, got into day clothes, ran to the front of the line, and got in so he could cheer on the sharks and all the other folks that he knew in there. It was just a very special experience closing out this house. And I couldn't tell you what my favorite picture was in here because they were all such great pictures. I love my Tooth Fairy moonlighting as an elf and Killer Kringles.
Yeah.
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 That's why yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that's why it looked so familiar. Yeah. Wait.
Oh, honey, I can always tell when there's a Tooth Fairy. I love that so much.
I hated Tooth Fairy.
I love Tooth Fairy, and
they scared me so bad.
And then I saw Tooth in Shipyard 32, and I'm like, Tooth. And I would yell Tooth Fairy to the elf and Killer Kringles, and I think at first they're like, I'm an elf though. But I love seeing that character again or that costume again. Mummy strippers, maybe keeled over laughing every time because I'm like, what a concept. And then Zyborgs, it's in my Twitter name. I love that scene. I love so many scenes, and Blood and Chum was fun. Hashed and Chain was fun. The ending was fun. But like I say detail, but it's just not like the production value. Like they just had things going on every level. The vibes were there. It was campy. It was scary. There were scares to be had here. Some great scares. Heavy Metal Hell 3D. I don't know how I almost forgot that. That was always fun to go through. Never went in with 3D glasses. I never prepared.
I bought a whole pack and I never opened them.
Well, now you can watch Shrek 4D at home.
They're the red and blue ones, though.
If you get the DVD, it'll work. You can watch Coraline.
No. Do you know me? Do you even know me as a person?
I forgot the conversation we had on Halloween night.
That is the scariest movie I've ever watched in my entire 22 years on this planet.
Fair enough. But I never did Slaughter Cinema the first time because I was too scared for one extra year, and so I didn't go until 2019. I just missed it. Now I wish I did, but because I didn't, this was just like I loved getting to enter into a significant chapter of HHN culture and lore. And I'm so glad. I love this house. This is in my Sacred 7. Is it a Sacred 7 still, or is it a Sacred 8 after this jumped in? Hold on, let me check the Excel sheet. It's a Sacred 8. It's an Elite 8. And Slaughter Cinema, I mean, I'm not going to say what my rankings are of these because it's still changing. It's an all-time list. Things change as time goes on, but it ain't number 8. I'll say that much. It's pretty high. I love this house dearly. I'm so glad I got to do it. And now I'm just rambling. But that's my 10 through 1. I did the 17 times. Yeah, because people were like, I need to do Insidious on the final October days. I said, screw you guys. I'm going to go to the movies. And, we come to this place for magic. And boy, it was so magical. Slaughter Cinema 2. Mwah, 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 mwah. I love you all.
I love that house. It was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
My number 2, I did 5 times. This was originally number 9 on my hype list. And the second I did it for the first time, Ghostbusters shot all the way up to number 1. And then I did Goblin. And then I did my number 1 house.
I mean, process of elimination.
As someone who did not get to do the original one and is still bitter about it, I am so glad that this house happened, even though, like Kelly, I have not seen the movie and I don't care to see the movie. But I loved this house, and not to bring up the triple scare again, but I never got it. Anytime I did this house, I did not get it, even though I literally got the same cast every single time I went through. And then this one night, I'm walking through there. They're all out. They're all reaching down. They're coming out, and I'm literally on the ground. And I go through that room, and I'm like, oh my God. And then Garaka comes, and I'm on the ground again. And then I turn around, and they're laughing at me. Oh my God. That was like, I was like, okay, Ghostbusters, like, this is not scary at all. But, okay, except the first Garaka. She got me good. Or they got me good. I don't know what Garaka is. I don't know.
An eldritch being from the beginning of the universe. That's the
period. But that first one would always scare the crap out of me. But oh my God, that literally, ooh, I was so scared. It was crazy. I was on the floor in a Ghostbusters house. A Ghostbusters house. It was so good. And the little puff guys. I meant to go through that house wearing my little Marshmallow Man shoulder guy, but it did not stay on my shirt because he was so large. I'd always have to wear him like down a little bit because like I don't got enough space between my head and my neck for how tall he was. He was so cute, though. I'm so glad I bought him. But my number 1, even though I spoiled it, and you could probably already tell, is Goblin's Feast. I have been a Goblin's Feast stan. Okay, it wasn't my number 5 for my hype list because I was a little uncertain about how they were going to do it. But I knew I was going to love this house, and I loved every second of this freaking house. I would do a little berries and cream dance jig through the entire house. I loved it. I loved every single second of it. I need them to do this house every year. It was Wicked Growth meets Dragons meets Yeti. It was just like the greatest thing ever. And everybody was clowning me first weekend. Not y'all. Everyone was clowning me first weekend saying that this was my favorite house and that it was the best one at the event this year. And they're like, girl, you are literally insane. And I'm like, And then everybody became Goblin's Feast stan. I have been there since the beginning. It was so good. I love this house. I will defend this house forever. I loved every second of it. Fungilius, whatever. Oh my God. I'd be walking out of that house backwards to do a little dance with him. Oh my God. The triple scare, quadruple scare. That night we got it. Oh my God. I love this house. This is an all-timer, I fear. It was so good. So good. I loved it. And I knew I would love it. And it was so good. It was honestly, my top 3 are interchangeable, but Goblin's Feast, it's good. Also, wait, going back to the Slaughter Cinema. Yeah. Going back to Slaughter Cinema, the Yeti trailer. I said,
my God,
what
the hell are
those
things?
My babies. I know there was no Yeti rep in Slaughter Cinema 2. I was a little surprised by that.
Probably because he's already escaped his poster. Because I love that detail was all the poster. Everyone's trying to get out their poster. Even in Mardi Gras.
I love that they filmed a trailer in Yeti for Slaughter Cinema 2.
And in Dragons. The Forbidden Obsession.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I don't think I watched all the trailers, actually. I'd never be there in line long enough to see a full loop of them.
Or you're too far to even hear them.
That part. But it's insane, right? But you hear that a million times over and over again. I hate those projectors. I hate those stupid projectors so much. I should have put it on the survey. They are so awful because they're so loud. If they just turned it down 5%, it'd be fine. Except the one where Monstrose was. I do like that one. I think it's a very good spot for a projector.
But then I want them to project something else.
Well, yes.
Well, yes.
But
yeah, I had a fun time this year. Slaughter Cinema and Goblins were pretty close for me, honestly. Those were almost interchangeable, but not quite.
Yeah, it was a pretty good year.
Goblin's Feast was in my number 2 during that middle portion. Like, the only reason it's down lower is because I would just go at the worst time. And I'm interested to see what time says, because as you all are putting Goblins into your top 2, I'm like, I should have done that. But also, I shouldn't have. Like, it was a very close year because everything was so excellent.
It was good.
I don't think there's like a consensus. I mean, I think if anything's closer to like what the general public is saying, Kelly's probably comes close with like Museum and Triplets and Monsters pretty low. But still, I had someone say that Triplets was just like the worst, and like calling it a house was being generous, and I was about to fight.
I don't think that's true. Yeah,
I don't think you could go that.
Yeah.
It was definitely a Halloween Horror Nights level house, and it was a good house. It just like it didn't quite hit the mark for me to make it any higher than 10. Sorry. But the scare actors were incredible, and it was I loved the Lights On tour too. Like y'all gotta do that with me next year.
Oh,
I gotta want to. Now I don't have to like drive 2 hours to do it. Like I can just roll out of bed at a reasonable hour and get there at a reasonable hour.
I have a couch to stay on, so I can also do.
This is true.
And I will also have an extra bed to stay on, because I live up here too.
Oh my
god! You got options.
I have so many places to couch surf, to bed surf. I will be at y'all's places.
Hell yeah.
It's also interesting, like I think we all have like the same houses around the same areas. The only one that moved dramatically was Insidious. Looking back, I think this is the most we ever agreed.
I know.
I do think
like
that's
Darkest
true.
Steel and Yeti. I think those were like the beginning of our hive mind.
I don't think there's anything like that I was super surprised by on any of y'all's lists, except honestly, I was surprised that Goblins was not in the top 2 for you. But like it was at number 4, so it wasn't like low.
No. I mean, it would hurt to put Ghostbusters as low as it was too, and that was 5, because that was excellent. But Insidious was excellent. Major Spirits was excellent, and Cinema was classic. You know, so it was a hard year to sort through.
No, it was. It was a good year. I stared at my list for so long.
Yeah, if 34 is this strong in houses, then we're in for a treat. So I mean, listen, we're getting the Dark Universe. We're getting Horror Unleashed in Vegas. Universal, don't drop the ball over in your marquee area. Please.
No.
Please.
I know.
Yeah, Vegas.
I know. We gotta go.
We have to do a whole we should do a bonus episode on that at some point.
Which one?
I have thoughts.
Oh, Vegas?
Honestly, we could probably do a full episode on it, but I have a lot of thoughts about Vegas.
But that's our show, gang. Thank you, as always, for listening, and thank you always for watching now that we're doing that this season. Thank you for sitting through our Horror Nights episodes. We have so many thoughts about Halloween Horror Nights that, honestly, you're going to get this whether you want it or not. But we're glad that you listened through. Or if you're some people that I know, you listen to the beginning and you fast forward to the end so you can hear what they were without listening to the whole episode. But however much, thank you for your support. Thank you again to our patrons, who we mentioned in part 1. Now we're mentioning in part 2. Those are Landon Kanoki, Jonathan Edouard, Jordan Buster, Greg Harvey, Joshua Gonzalez, and Rachel Sprague, and Dwayne and Teresa Diker. Again, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/themeparkworkshop to support the show and get bonus episodes, updates, and more. And you're going to get so much. You're going to get so much because I'm so behind. But we thank you for your support all the same. Kelly, where can the peeps find you?
Well, y'all can find me a few places. You can find me on Instagram at kels.hoff. That is Kels with an S. You can find me on Twitter at killer_Kels. And full disclosure, I don't know how long I'm going to be on Twitter until the wheels fall off is the answer. So I'm also on Blue Sky at killer-Kels. .bsky.social. But you can just search killer-Kels. So make a Blue Sky. Follow me on there. It's fun. And I also run our Instagram, Theme Park Workshop. And I also run our TikTok, Theme Park Workshop. A little dead on there. So we'll see. I'm in law school. Please be kind to me. But you can message me on there anytime, and I would love to chat with y'all.
Bella, sorry, I forgot to post.
Oh my god. You can find me on Instagram at Flynn Rider's Nose. You can find me on Twitter at Bella Harvey with 2 Y's. You can find me on the Theme Park Workshop Twitter, Workshop TP. That will, I say it every time. It will come back eventually. It will. I swear. You can find me on Blue Sky at Bella Harvey. And that's about it. That's where you can find me, babes. Come find me.
Slay. And you can
No,
find...
you can't. Look at our social media.
And you can find me, as I mentioned before, at patreon.com/themeparkworkshop. And you can also find me on Twitter until the wheels fall off. Probably. For now. For the time being. At AdamJ_film. Should probably change that handle, but not yet. All right. Thanks, gang. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And we will see you next time for the first Universal Relics. Bye.
Bye.
You are gay.